Okay, so I am so excited to have Jenny on the call with me because we just recently did a workshop together that I called the Launch with Confidence workshop. And she did a session with me after, and she has made some incredible progress and had some really sizable results in a very short period of time. So I thought it would be awesome to have her come in here and kind of share with us what it was like for her in working through the process and what some of the light bulb moments have been for her, because I think a lot of us think that it takes a lot of time to make sizable progress in our business, that it requires a lot. And so I just want to turn it over to you, Jenny. If you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself and tell us what you did and what you do.
Okay, thanks, Savannah. Happy to be here. Happy to I appreciate everything that you've helped me through. So hopefully we kind of go over what you have done for me. And kind of led me into where I am today. So there's kind of who I was and who I'm now. So I'm an orthopedic and pelvic physical therapist. And prior to working through all of this, I was seeing a lot of patients in person, about like 21 to 22. I own my own practice, and I was heavily manual based. So I was just feeling really drained at the end of the day. I'm also a mom of a 2.5-year-old. So I would just enter the house and just feel drained. Now I am still an ortho and pelvic PT, but I am also a health coach, and I'm putting together a program for chronic pain that's going to incorporate individual and group coaching as well as education. And that's kind of what we're moving forward with, and I'm really excited about.
Awesome. So when you came to start working with me, what were you specifically looking to achieve, and what problems were you facing?
Yeah, so I knew I needed to change, and I was kind of using COVID as a catalyst to be like, okay, we're revisiting the drawing board. Like, this is the time to kind of divert, change the path of, because what you now realize what you were doing before was really draining and not like what you wanted for your life. And now you have the opportunity to create a new path. But I had up to this point never really consciously created a path for myself. I kind of was more a person that any opportunity that came my way, I just kind of did. And so I never consciously made any decision of like, this is what I want my life to be like. This is what I want my work to look like. So I knew that I wanted to change. I was thinking that I wanted to go into functional medicine and kind of all of the different factors that go into pain. And with that, I thought the most accessible thing was health coaching. But I didn't really know what the service was that I was really wanting to offer. I didn't really know what even the patient population, like, wasn't really honed in. I have my pelvic pain people, and I've got chronic pain people, I have athletes, I've got high school, it was just kind of all over the gamut of things. And so I really just needed some specifics and also actionable items to just make progress with. You can kind of get paralyzed through analysis with all of the things that you could potentially do. And I was afraid of just adding on another thing and not like, streamlining myself to, exactly what I wanted to do and be energized after it. So direction.
Direction, for sure. And you were talking about direction, but also like not wanting to add on another thing. So what do you think was it about my approach that attracted you to that, given that you were afraid of putting one more thing on your plate?
I mean, you start with being like, well, who is it that you're serving? What is the service? What's the outcome? Like really honing in and defining like a very tangible, small thing so that you can easily say like, this is what I offer. And then it eliminates like all the other fluff. You're like, this is what I do. I have a statement in like one sentence or two sentences of what I do. And so then it becomes like, well, I don't do that. And I also don't do that because this is what I do. So that approach, and then just the simplicity of it, like, what is your sales strategy? What is your marketing strategy? Like, just a very just outlined, like you just create the steps and it's easy, you answer the questions and bam, you got answers.
Right. Well, let me just put this caveat. You got answers, but you got to take some actions too.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So
but you need those answers to take the actions, really, you know.
Right. And that's key, right? 'Cause rather than spinning around in indecision and confusion and what should I do? So if you were at that place and you're like, okay, I'm just not taking action, but I'm in COVID and time is starting to, like, 1 month turn to 2 months, was starting to turn into 3 months. And you're like, well, I want to consciously decide what I do going forward. If COVID's going to be the catalyst and I want to decide. So like, what would it mean for you and your business to have that direction and to have that clarity and to be able to create something consciously without putting more on top? Like, what would it mean for your business since you were already a business owner? And what would it mean for you personally since you have a husband and a 2.5-year-old?
Yeah, so it means a better relationship with my daughter and my husband because I have more energy, and that I'm not drained by work, but actually really energized and fulfilled by it. It also means more flexibility, more time, more money, that just like with less work, basically. And so it just, you know, it means the life that I want to live, not kind of just the life that I think I have to or should or has been presented in front of me. So making that conscious decision and then taking the actions immediately to get there. It also means less time spent. Like I was sitting in this moment of like, okay, I have an hour and a half where the kid is sleeping. This is my time to figure out like my vision for my business. And you're just paralyzed because you have no direction of where to go or what to do with that limited amount of time that's going to be the most efficient at getting you where you want to go. And so that was really helpful to like, I now know in my hour and a half nap, like this is what I'm doing. And I know that this action item is going to lead to my goals.
Awesome. And you started to talk about it, which is great segue. So is there, besides like you got an hour and a half because the 2.5-year-old is going to wake up and want mama and her attention. So besides knowing like, what do you want to do? Was there anything specific about what I teach that had a really big impact for you?
You know, I think that you're really good at like listening to exactly the needs and like helping problem solve and put a name to exactly what I wanted basically. And you're really good at like making that, I think, very specific to the person that you're talking to. So for me in particular, I wouldn't say this is like a blanket, but just for me in particular, you know, I was sitting here like, Devonna, I want to do health coaching and I think that would be great. And I want to charge this much. And you're like, Jenny, like that's a lot of time to do all those calls with health coaching. And so you really directed me to the program, and the program, like having a program is like, it was like this big aha moment of like, yes, like I get to minimize the calls by doing some group but still have the individual component. Cause I think that that's really important. I get to like already have the educational material laid out, like, you know, invested time in the forefront, but then minimal after. And then it's this big package that I can charge a hefty amount for. And that like, then my goal becomes like, I just need to get like 10 or 15 people into the program. Like that becomes my only thing that I really have to put a lot of effort behind. And that it's like, it decreases the amount of time spent with like one-on-one manual therapist, you know, patients or one-on-one coaching phone calls, because you started with the calendar too of being like, okay, well, how many hours do you want to be working? When are you going to do that? And it's like, it became very obvious, like, oh gosh, if I add coaching on, it's just more hours of my time. And that's kind of the route I think I would have gone down had I not talked to you. So I think the program for me was like the big, oh, yes, that's it. That's exactly it. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so you talked a bit about going towards the group. So that's one of the results you have now. You have a group program, and that was based specifically because of me looking at your time and what your desires and your needs were. What other, and then also you only are working on getting 10 to 15 people in the group versus you were doing 20 to 21 patients per week. Like less people, more money, less time. Okay, so from your words, what results so far have you
Yeah.
achieved and how has it impacted your business and you personally?
Yeah, so I announced so I have my like emailing list for my patients. I've been on my own for like 5 or 6 years. I went since 2013. So wow, 7 years. So I have my email list that I send newsletters out to. So I kind of announced that, hey, I'm gonna be doing this chronic pain program. I'm still hashing out the details, but like, let me know if you're interested. And so then I got a pretty good amount of people that are interested because I had already kind of planted the seeds of like, I think your pain is more than just your muscles and your bones, and that there's a bigger picture out there. So I'd kind of already started working with some people on that. And then I reached out to every single one of them and had a pretty lengthy discussion about whether or not we felt like this program was going to be a good fit for them. And it also kind of helped me develop the program itself because we haven't started the program yet. We're still developing. But I, at this point, have 10 confirmed people who have paid $500 down to do what I'm calling a beta program. Since I admit, like, this is my first health coaching adventure as well. And so I'm doing it. I'm going, the next time I run it, it's going to be $2,500 for a 3-month program. This time around, it's $1,500. For these beta people. And with that, like what they're going to give me is some feedback, some testimonials, refer the program to people, so I think it's worth, and they're committing to something that hasn't even been developed yet. So, I mean, that's pretty cool.
And this is what I teach y'all. Like, I love it because this is how, like, people think, okay, I've got to create all the modules and I got to do all the things and write all the emails. And it was as simple as like, here's what I'm thinking. I think that this thing that you've been coming to me for manual PT for years and months or weeks on end is more than bones and muscles. And this is what I'm thinking. Are you interested? Yes or no? And here's the caveat. It's $500 deposit down, because people can say they're interested all they want, but until they give you the money, that's people vote with their dollars. And so I love that. So
yeah. And I actually think that like by including them in the process a little bit, like they're feeling like this program is really going to be tailored to like their needs, and that I think they're going to think that the value is way higher because I'm doing like 2 calls with them before the program even starts to kind of check in with them, what their needs are, with like what their understanding is that like this is to help me develop what the program's going to be. I'm going to, of course, give them some, little maybe things to maybe practice or something, during that call. But for the most part, just them feeling like they're part of the process. And then I was really surprised at how many people were like, yeah, I'll put $500 down on this. Because, it's always like the worst part is asking for money. But what I found is that, people want to, like, in order to have value behind something, you have to charge money for it. And so, it's like, because of course, naturally you want to be like, okay, beta people, like for free, whatever, but then they're not going to be accountable to what they're doing. They're not going to feel like it's a huge value. And so they're not going to refer people out if they go from like $0 to 2,500, and so I think like it was way easier to get that $500 than I thought it would be. And then I think it actually contributed to like their feeling of like the value of it and its development. So, and you pushed me there. So it was so helpful to just be like, Jenny, charge money. You were like the one that made me feel really confident about my pricing. Is like, because we always undervalue ourselves, or at least the people I'm around, we tend to undervalue ourselves. And it's always one of the hardest hiccups around it is like, is this an appropriate number? And you were like, yes, that's appropriate. And also like, I am very confident that I'm going to over deliver. And that's the key, is you over deliver, no matter what you're charging. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. You took all of the words out of my mouth. I love it. And so one of the impacts, because you weren't working at all because of COVID, And if it's okay to share, your hubby was like, okay, time is ticking. PPP is running out. Like, when you gonna bring some money in? And you had to make that decision. So what was the decision that you were making prior to our discussion and us working together?
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of telehealth, but nothing consistent, I guess. So so starting, this coming month, my husband's like, okay, like we need you to make this mark income wise in order to survive. And so the decision that I was kind of in between was like, I could easily go back to what I was doing. I can see way too many people, be drained, but meet the income mark that we need, which, there's a lot of pressure to just like that kind of felt like what I was going to have to do because it was feeling like the only option. But now I'm actually feeling like I can minimize how many people I see in person and maximize the time spent developing the program because I've gotten paid already to do that. And that I know once I can, the biggest push is I need a start date for the program. And then I know that once I have that start date, then more income comes in. So I can kind of that's now, I'm not having any pressure to see people in person. Cause I could feel that I was just going to go down that route again and be in that spot of feeling stuck, doing the same thing.
And with family at home that you didn't necessarily know that you wanted to go out there and risk being exposed, right?
Yeah.
And so on a personal side, just in this time of making that decision, how has that, what results or how has everything affected you or impacted you personally, you and the family?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm just a happier person with a very clear goal and way less stress. And so I think I show up to my family in a much better realm. And then I've also just in my decisions, I've been way more clear about right now I'm at my in-laws house and I decided to go to my in-laws house so that I could put more time into the program because they can take the kid for a while. And so I'm just creating these decisions to be okay, well, I know I need to put time into this program and that it's a finite time that I need to kind of front load that effort. And so I need to make that opportunity happen now. And for a finite period of time. And then I'm golden. I don't really, I think the hour and a half without my kid for her naps, I might even read a book, it won't be this crunch time to get everything done and, finish all my charts from all my patients. So it's just, right now it's made it very clear, what my day needs to look like, where my priorities are, so that I can show up and having that clarity. And just, I think the unknown for me is unsettling. So having that clarity and that plan, I just feel calmer and more able to show up for my 2.5-year-old.
Oh my goodness. I'm just giddy inside because I could tell before we press record, she's on cloud 9, 10, 12, 100. It's so good. So let's talk about this though. Why did you almost not join, or why did you almost not work with me?
I think it's really when you're not making consistent money and you don't really have a vision, it's really hard to know what to invest in and whether that's a good decision or not. And up to this point, I've never really had any coaching around this. Like I said, I've always just kind of done what was put in front of me and never had. So I didn't even know the value behind a business coach. I didn't even really if you were to ask me what does a business coach do? I would be I have no idea. And what value does that service have for you? I'd be I think I can do it on my own, And so, with your workshop, it was a short period of time that I could commit to. It was a day long. And even though I couldn't be there live, you were going to send me the recording. And so I was like, okay, like I can commit to like, I'll be able to listen to a recording. And then, the price was like, I felt like it was an investment for sure, but it was like, this is an amount of money that if this is useless, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. It's not going to be the difference between me eating tonight, and then it just, that, like, just taking that step of being like, I don't know what I don't know. And maybe I do need help. And maybe that is worth an investment. And just taking that jump to it. And I just think you're a very like approachable person. I've listened to some of your podcasts and just kind of followed you a little bit. I'm like, well, I think I could get along with her on like a personal level, and just about like your PT background and just everything about your story and why you do what you do just made me feel like, okay, well, worst comes to worst, I like listened to a couple hours of Tavana talking, still like her, but she doesn't really help me that much, like that's the worst case scenario. Instead, I got like so much more value out of that workshop than ever before, and we've had follow-up phone calls. And at this point, I understand the value of business coaching, period. And I think just like now I'm thinking we all need a life coach. If you own a business, you need a business coach. And if you're unhappy in the work that you currently do for an employer, you need a business coach to help you get out of that spiral.
Even if you're the employer.
Even if you're the employer, yes. And so, I think that like where I'm sitting right now is that the investment of doing more coaching and like a mastermind or working with you individually is just like, I need to start making some money, but there's no doubt in my mind that at some point I'm going to feel like, cause now I know the potential, right? That like, even when you sit in what you think is the best it can get, I think it can get better. And that a business coach is really vital to like making you realize that in the first place. and then also like creating like what that looks like and how to get there. And so yeah, I mean, just like I was talking to Tavana about like, just if we had met like previous to COVID, when I was like doing all my patient care, and I would probably like just throw money, just being like, get me out of this, but now without a consistent income, that's like that's not possible. But I think like just with this program alone.
Well, I also want to say that may not have been the best space to start working from.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
And so there have been people that have come to me in that desperate, burned out space. And I'm like, we might want to clean up some of our thoughts about that first, because it's like leaving one thing. Like the analogy I like to use is you divorce your husband to go with your boyfriend and not realize that your boyfriend has flaws too. You just stay with your husband, you know what I'm saying? So like, or you can kind of come to have a coming to Jesus moment and see where you play the part, where you play a role, where they play a role, and then have the new term that I heard is a conscious uncoupling, where it's like, okay, this is very intentional. I can leave you in love and still want something else. So I think that's very important. You also said something about understanding, like before you had no idea, you didn't understand what the value of a business coach was. And so if you could briefly articulate now, what is your understanding of a business coach, like the value of working with the business coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I've always said, like, don't pretend to be an expert at something you're not an expert at, I guess. And so I think that, and that like, every PT needs a PT themselves, or, and it's just a matter of like, even when you think that you are making a decision that is going to get you where you want to get, left to your own devices, oftentimes you're not on the right track. and having a business coach to like present that to, and them to like pick it apart and be like, ask you all the questions. I mean, you're still coming to it on your own. But like that guidance of just being like, are you sure? Like, is that what you're doing because you want to? Or is that what you're doing because you think you have to? Or like, oh, well, what does that decision lead to? You know, what would your future look like if you did that? And is that what you want? Like just having that kind of back and forth. And then accountability. I mean, I don't think I would have like sent an email to my patients if I didn't know Tavana was going to email me and be like, so what was the response? And I don't think I would have, like, I probably would have offered it for free because, you know, and I didn't want to have to be like, Tavana, I gave it for free, you know, like having that accountability is like, you know, in coaching, it's like knowledge isn't enough.
Well, right. And even so, like, instead of doing it for free, you charge something. And it wasn't necessarily what we talked about. So let's just throw you under the bus right there, put you out there. But it was enough, at least for your hubby, to see like, yo, this is a viable option, and just give me a little more time and space to get my footing with it, right? And it's so awesome. Because a lot of times the other part of where I bring in my life coaching part that I don't know that we maybe highlighted is that I do talk about time. I do talk about your family and what does the context of your business and your energy and working style fit into the context of all of that. And that's where you get the life and the business coaching. And then two, like not just accountability, because I think accountability is like then transferring power over to me. But just knowing like, okay, well, if we were to continue to work together, like, okay, let's talk about, well, why did you decrease the price? When we were on the call, it was this price. And then we sent it out there, it turned to this. So let's talk about your thoughts about that so that you can get grounded in this is what it is and it's okay, right? So that's the next layer of things. And there's, in terms of pricing, right, and offering things, and there's something that you briefly touched on that I do want to highlight, because you said you couldn't be present for the workshop. But normally what people would do is say, oh, well, I can't make it. And then so let's say, for example, one of your people said, I can't make it on that time. Then people will usually be like, okay, and they can't get it. But you wouldn't be where you are right now, all giggly and bubbly and happy and at your in-laws, if I hadn't said, come up with the problem solving of you can still get the information and we can still work together in this way, right? Instead of like, did that feel, and I'm putting you on a spot here, but did that feel like pushy to you to say that?
No, it felt actually like the opposite of that. It felt like, oh, like Tavana's gonna make it happen. Like that you're invested in finding a way, just period. And that I think that goes across like if I came to you and was like, Tavana, I want to like live in Costa Rica and I want to like only sip Mai Tais the rest of my life. Like you would problem solve like how I would get there. Like you'd make it a possible, you know? So it showed to me that like your whatever, you know, your ability to just be like, well, that's okay if you can't make it. Like this is how you get it, you know? So I knew that I could show up and be like, Vaughn, I got a 2.5-year-old, like I have very minimal time. I like am not making any money right now. Like I got this much to give you. And you'd be like, I will work with this much, you know? And that to me was like, okay, this is gonna work.
Yeah, which is a great thing, right? Because I don't think people realize that two of the biggest jobs or responsibilities of a business owner is to solve problems, and to do that requires innovation. So that's what we do. And that's just my belief. And so I'm glad you were able to see that. So last two questions. What was your favorite, if you were to pick one favorite, what was your favorite part of working together?
I mean, I enjoy you as a person and I feel like you're invested not just in like the outcome of my business and my work, but like my happiness. So it always came back to like, well, you know, what does Jenny on like a personal level want? Like, what is your relationship with your husband? What is your relationship with your child? What do you want it to be? You know, like, what do you want for yourself as a person? And it felt like that was prioritized. And so you really feel like seen as not just like, I own this business and dollar signs and like that kind of thing, but more about like who I am and then like the work I do, you know? And so that was, I think, just a really valuable, and it also like changes the mindset of yourself, because I've up to this point, like kind of defined myself through work. It's kind of been like, well, work. And then like, if there's any time left, the other stuff. And so like reversing that and you really facilitating like through where the emphasis goes of like, no, it's Jenny first. And then, you know, everything else follows was, I think, my favorite like thing about just like your general approach. And I love our conversations. You're like, it's not like one of those like meetings that you're like, oh, I have to talk to that like, you know, like I've been to some therapists where you're just like, I have to sit in a room with them and like have this really boring conversation about all the things, you know? And no, you're fun. You we get along really easily, and I look forward to just talking to you in general. So that's always fun.
All right. So when you're like, oh, I have to sit and talk to the therapist about all the things, mine like, I can't wait to talk about all the things.
I can't wait to find out what's next, you know? Like,
right.
I can't wait to like see what comes out of this coaching session. So
right. Because I just have to be present with you and meet you where you are in the moment. Like I have no idea. Like that's just what happens. And so last question, who would you recommend this to and why?
I mean, I would say just like blanket statement, like anyone, like anyone, period, like whether you own a business or not, like period. But if I was to hone it into a very specific population, just like the people that I serve, I would say like specifically people who, well, women, I think women who are overworked at the end of their day and they come home drained, they have no time for self-care, or like either you're working for someone or you own a business that's just like everything is put into the business and you just feel like you're drowning in that, and maybe you haven't even asked the question of, is there something different that I could be doing, that I don't think that you necessarily need to be at that point of I know I want something different and I'm going to do it. I think just knowing that you're not happy like where you are, then I think you could benefit from having a very fun conversation with Savannah.
And willing to do something about it, right?
Yes. Like I don't think, you know, there's all the like stages of change and stuff. I mean, I think that you want to be wanting to do something different. But I don't think you need to necessarily know what that is. I think that Savannah's got you on that one. Just once you recognize that you want something different than where you're at, then that's the time. And just like you said, you meet us where we are. It's like, no matter where you're at, like there's going to be a strategy to get you wherever you want to go. Yeah.
Which is so fun. Like that is one of my favorite things to do is like, what do you want? How do we get you there? And have like remain intact along the way, right? Because I would say it 100 times and 100 times, well, we are people first, professional second. So thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you.
If you'd like to see what it would be like to work with me and you're feeling kind of stuck and want to make some changes, then you can either find a link in the show notes or you can go to TavanaDenise.com/momentum. And Tavana is TAV as in Victor, ONA, Denise, DENISE.com/momentum.